It's your boy Pavvy, new cap in tow, giving you your weekly roundup of tennis this week. And what you would have thought may have been quite a quiet week post Australian Open turned out to be another dramatic week. So obviously I will be focusing on the incident in the Davis Cup tie last night between Belgium and Chile, which ended in some of the most astonishing scenes really that I've seen in tennis. But we'll go into that in full detail shortly. I also want to just kind of give a roundup of tennis on both tours. Obviously on the men's this week it was the Davis Cup, so some fun matches took place there. And then on the women's, there was the only kind of WTA events that happened this week were Singapore and also WTA in Linz. That was a 500 event. The Singapore was a 250. So I'll give you a quick roundup of those as well. But yeah, just really wanted to go straight into the latest scandal that's hit tennis. And for me, as someone who kind of promotes the fact that tennis isn't a level playing field anymore, and that certain players from countries or sponsorships or those who I say are protected by the establishment get treated more favourably than those that are not. And the incident that I'm referring to yesterday, obviously, which has gone viral and is really kind of doing the rounds in tennis, was the incident involving Belgium's Zizou Bergs and Chile's Christian Garin. And it was a great match. It was going into the final set decider. The tie was kind of finely poised, and Belgium were at home, so they were backed by a big crowd. But Chile also had some great support as well, which was great to see. So it was like an old-fashioned Davis Cup tie. And the incident really happened on Christian Garin's service game at 5-all in the final set. He was broken by Zizou Bergs, and Zizou Bergs, in his excitement, kind of celebrated towards his team, kind of ran towards his team. But right at the time where the players kind of change, and bearing in mind that they're deep into the match, so they know that the players are, this is where they change, just outside the umpire's chair. He decided to then leap up at the exact moment that Christian Garin was crossing the kind of intersection, really, to get onto the other side of the court, and it absolutely thumped him. So it looked as though his shoulder went straight into his eye. Christian Garin looked shocked. He went straight to the ground. If you look at the kind of reaction of the Belgium team, they all looked really shocked. Zizou Bergs looked immediately at the umpire and thinking, I think this could be a default here. I think he looked shocked. And all kind of hell kind of reigned after that. Now, what happened in terms of the process after this injury that Christian Garin has now sustained? He was checked over by the Team Chile coach, the doctors, and they've confirmed now that they felt at the time that he was suffering from a severe headache. He had some nausea. And they had some swelling around the eye, and they basically said that, he needed a little bit of time to recover. Now, the problem is that the umpire or the supervisor felt that he was checked over by they said it's an independent doctor, but he was actually checked by the Belgium doctor, who then told Carlos Ramos, who was the supervisor of that match, that in their opinion, they feel Christian Garin, is okay to continue the match. So Carlos Ramos then gives Christian Garin a time violation because the 90 seconds has passed from the end of the game. Christian Garin has said, look, I'm I can't go yet. I'm still struggling, and I've got this, headache, and I'm feeling nauseous. I've got, a headache. I need a bit more time. And then Carlos Ramos then issued a further 2 more violations. And on the third one, what essentially happens is it's a game penalty. And obviously he was losing 6-5 in the final set. So that game penalty then essentially defaults him, because it was the only game that Zizou Bergs needed to win the match. So Belgium are awarded the match. Chile are in in uproar, and in my opinion, rightly so. They then obviously, remonstrate with Carlos Ramos, saying, Zizou Bergs is the one who should be, defaulted here. How can you not, A, default him, and B, give us a point penalty for someone who's been injured by the reckless action of Zizou Bergs? So, for me, that kind of makes sense. And Chile have kind of then issued quite a harsh statement saying that they're appealing this decision with the Davis Cup, with the ITF, because they felt that Zizou Bergs kind of did it intentionally, or kind of it looked as though he knocked him over. The wording was that it looked as though it was intentional. I think it's difficult to say that it was intentional, to be honest with you. It looks like an accident, but it was very, very reckless. You can celebrate with the crowd or the team, but when the player is coming towards you, some people have said that you just wanted to celebrate in his face. And you see that sometimes in tennis and sport. If someone wants to get under someone's opponent's skin, they'll kind of celebrate in their face just to let them know that, we're ready for the fight. And has Zizou Bergs overstepped the mark there by jumping at the exact time that Christian Garin was making his way onto the other side of the net? So, obviously we have to look at previous cases, and the one that obviously that I will bring to mind was one of the most famous defaults in recent times, was Novak Djokovic's getting defaulted in the US Open in 2020. Now, people say the circumstances were different, but if you have a look at both of the cases, in this one, Novak Djokovic isn't even looking in the direction of the lines woman. He hits the ball back as he would do every other game at the end of a game, and it's accidentally hit the lineswoman. And the emphasis here is on accident. It's a clear accident. The umpire then kind of comes on and has a chat, and the supervisor is on board, and they've kind of said, well, the rules state that if you hit someone, not in the course of play, so obviously during the course of play, players hit each other accidentally, or, during the course of the play, it happens. But it wasn't during the course of play. So his actions has caused someone in that tennis arena to be hurt. It doesn't matter if it's a fan or an official or a player. His actions were deemed to have caused an injury or hurt that person. So he's defaulted. That's the reason that they've given. It was an accident. It was unintentional. But because that person has got hurt from his reckless actions, he got defaulted. Now, in this scenario, the umpire has had a look, and they had, there's multiple videos and TV footage covering this event. So they could have taken 30 seconds to have a look at the coverage, and they can see that there is a big impact from Zizou Bergs onto Christian Garin. It's a shoulder in his eye. Christian Garin has then shown on his Instagram there was redness, there was swelling, and it's caused him to fall onto the ground. It was hitting the eyeball. It was a nasty injury. Now, anyone who says, oh, but it was an accident, then has to refer back to the Novak Djokovic case, because we're told that it doesn't matter if it's an official, if it's an opponent, if it's a fan, if they're hurt by your actions, then it's a default. So in this instance, again, we have seen that tennis is not applying the same rules. And you may have a look at who was involved. Belgium are at home. A lot of what I say in Twitter is that I believe the West sometimes get preferential treatment from the rest of the world. And again, so Belgium are at home. They've decided it would have been a tough decision, and the fans wouldn't have been happy, but it was the right decision to make. And who's kind of suffering on the other end is Chile from South America, not from the West. So then you've got to think, is there some sort of bias here? And then the other thing that, really grated me was just the other week in the quarterfinal of the Australian Open, Yannick Sinner went to the umpire and said, I'm not feeling well. And the umpire was like, fine, okay, we'll call a doctor. The doctor came. Yannick Sinner went off court for 12 minutes. He went off court for 12 minutes. We still today don't know what the reason was for that injury. He said he was feeling ill, he was feeling white. He was off for 12 minutes. He came back. He suffered no time violation. The umpire gave him as long as he wanted the world number one Yannick Sinner. And we already know, obviously, with the fact that he's failed drug tests and still able to play, that he is being treated differently to, let's also go back to Chile, to Nicolas Jarry, who was suspended for 11 months almost immediately in similar circumstances for not intentionally taking a drug, being doped, taking a performance. It was a vitamin that he took that was contaminated. He was suspended straight away, almost for 11 months. It was publicised straight away. They didn't do that with Yannick Sinner, and now we've seen the same here with Cristian Garin. Why wasn't he given that same luxury? The Chilean doctor has said that he didn't feel that he was ready. He needed time to kind of, recover from that shock. Anyone who's had any injury to the eye, and I've played paddle and tennis, and I've been hit in the eye a couple of times, it shocks you. It just, even a little bit of a knock on the eye, you kind of head's all over the place, and you need a few minutes to just, gather your thoughts and think, am I okay to continue? And, with Carlos Ramos issuing time violations after every 90 seconds, that doesn't help in trying to help you recover. So why wasn't he taken off the court? Why didn't the doctors take him off the court and see, if he was okay? So it's against the double standards and the hypocrisy of tennis. And, a lot of people, a lot of the tennis media, they don't like me because I will call it as it is. I don't follow the narrative. Just the other week, Matt Letizia, Premiership footballer, a legend, a former England footballer, said, if you want to see the tennis news and see it as it is, follow Pavvy G. And, a lot of the tennis media was like, oh my God, well, why is he saying that? This is like stupid. It's like toxic saying, to the most toxic person in the world. And I get called toxic because I'll call it as it is. And the closer that I get to exposing the truth in tennis, the more hate that I'm going to get, the more names I'm going to get called, the more they're going to try and silence me, the more they're going to try and intimidate me, the more they're going to try and censor me. And I am pleased, really, that Chile have really taken this forward, and they're not going to take any rubbish anymore. Why should they? They themselves have seen all these injustices happen in tennis. They could have just taken it lightly, but no, they've said no. We're gonna push this. We're gonna appeal this. They've thanked for the most of the community that is kind of tennis community is supporting them. The fact of the matter is, Zizou Berg should have been defaulted. A, B, Cristian Garin should have been given as long as he needed for him to get well to finish that game. And it doesn't matter if it was the City was 6-5 down and Bergs was serving for the match. We know historically in tennis, if you're serving out for the match, it's the most difficult service game that you're going to have in that whole game. So there's no kind of, assumption that he would have got on the won that. Garin could well have broken and then got on to win the match. So we can't say that the match was a done deal. It was still 6-5. It was still a tight match. It was, Bergs would have been under immense pressure to serve that out. So, the scoreline for me is regardless. And obviously, I don't personally know Zizou Bergs. I don't really know. I think he's a great young player. I don't know him. I wouldn't say I know him personally, or I don't know anyone who knows him. I do know that his dad kind of, tweeted when Novak Djokovic was injured. It was interesting because Andy Roddick had done a podcast last summer. And this was when Djokovic was 3 or 4 weeks post knee surgery, and he kind of said, "Look, Djokovic is nowhere going to we're nowhere making Wimbledon. He should just pull out of the draw, to make sure that the alternates don't, it doesn't mess them up, and there's more chances for alternates to get through to qualify outright instead of going through qualifying." Now, Zizou Bergs was one of those alternates at that time, so his ranking wasn't good enough for him to get an automatic draw. And his dad kind of, his dad and his coach kind of waded into that and then put out a tweet saying, can anyone who's, knows that they're injured, just pull out? And he's obviously alluding to Novak Djokovic's injuries. So, for one instance there, he wants the rules to be applied, and he completely wrong. Because obviously Djokovic went on to play Wimbledon, he made the final, and then he went on to play the Olympics and won the Olympics. So he was completely wrong in that as well. But what he did is he was putting pressure on Djokovic to kind of withdraw, and you don't get that from any of the players. Have you ever seen anyone who's injured and pressure coming from the media saying, pull out, it's the right thing to do? No, of course you don't. Any professional player will give, it's their, if they've got a right in it to be, and they've qualified for a tournament, it's up to them when they pull out. They want to give themselves every second to give them that opportunity to play in the event. So it's, for people like, Zizu Berg's dad to wade in, and Andy Roddick to wade in, and Andy Roddick later apologised for that. It wasn't right. So that's the only history that I've got with Zizu Berg. As I said, I've got no personal issues with him. He's a great player. And I think he's, I've watched him play a few times, an exciting player, and I think he's going to go on and be, maybe top 20, top 25 player if he keeps on his trajectory. He's a great player. So it's nothing to do with that. It's just, it's mainly to do with, my issue with Zizu Bergs in this instance was he was reckless, and the establishment in 2022 during when Djokovic was not, was banned from playing in the US Open, was deported from the Australian Open. All we kept on here was actions have consequences, and the fact that they felt his action or inaction of not taking a vaccine meant he had to face the consequences. We often heard rules are rules, that we can't bend for anyone. So where are those actions of consequences in this instance? Where are the rules are rules in this instance? There isn't any. So, it's complete hypocrisy. I hope the ITF and Davis Cup have a look at this, because I really feel that there's been an injustice to Christian Garin, and yeah, I'm going to speak for him. People say, oh, I'm always, getting involved in various contentious matters. I will, and I will always back the underdog, and I'll always back the person who I think is being treated unfairly. And in this instance, I think it's Team Chile, and I think it's Christian Garin. So I hope that they keep the pressure on and try and get that, either the match replayed or the decision overturned, because it is there in black and white. It's there in video footage. Zizu Berg should, A, have been defaulted, and B, Christian Garin should have been given ample time. He shouldn't have had any time violations for a clear eye injury. So that is my instance on the Davis Cup. The other thing that I really wanted to speak about was the WTA in Linz was a 500 event this week. Ekaterina Alexandrova from Russia beat Diana Yastremska in an amazing final, 7-5 in the final set in Linz. So it was a big title for her. Disappointed to see Yastremska didn't shake the hand of Alexandrova just because she is from and was born in Russia. That war started 3 years ago now, and they're still having issues. And then they're doing the celebration. Obviously, when a player of the WTA wins, they normally, have their country, their flags, and it's a pride moment. This is a world global sport, and Ekaterina Alexandra had nothing next to her. She's not able to represent Russia, the country that she was born into. And this is all because they think that this is going to impact Putin's decision against Zelensky. And who knows who was right in that one. Just because a country invades someone, we don't know the truth. Russia is saying it was Ukraine's fault. Ukraine is saying it's Russia's fault. Tennis shouldn't get involved in politics. It shouldn't. Now, if we take the stance that they were saying, well, we think Russia's are the aggressor because they invaded Ukraine, then let's go back to 2003 when we know, because after various court hearings, that the UK and the US illegally invaded Iraq in 2003. Over 500,000 people died in that invasion, including civilians, including women and children. Why were Americans and British still allowed to play under their flags? Why were they not banned from Wimbledon? Why were they asked to play as neutral kind of athlete? Because they're the West, and that they won't do that, because a lot of the money that plies into the tennis is coming from the West. So that is where things are unfair. So I really hope the Russian Tennis Federation puts some pressure on tennis to say, we want our identities back. It is not fair. It is not right. And, that is not how we should be treated with. So that was the week in tennis. It was post kind of Australian Open, so not a huge amount of tennis going on. In terms of Novak Djokovic, some positive news came out of his camp a few days ago. So news was that he was recovering well from his hamstring tear, and they feel that it's going to be a matter of weeks as opposed to months, as some of the media had reported initially. before he is back. So Doha's coming up in a couple of weeks. I don't know whether he's going to be ready for that. If he is, then he is. But if he isn't, then there's no big drama really. I think his main focus is just to keep getting fit. And like he said, this year his main priority is the slams. Serbia were knocked out of the Davis Cup this week against Denmark. That was a great game, 3-2 to Denmark. So he's not going to play Davis Cup for Serbia this year, which might free him up to play a couple more events if he wants to, because he's kind of said he'll use other events to use as preparation for slams. He also is very mindful that he's on 99 titles. He would love to just get that 100th title, because that's a very special milestone. So I know he'll be keen to try and play an event just to get that 100 on the board as well. That will be special. And he might even play Monaco this year, and that will make him, if he wins that, he would have won every single Masters event at least 3 times. So it'll be a triple Masters winner, which has not been done by anyone before. Not even doubles been done before. In fact, no player has ever even won a Masters, every single Masters. So more records for him. But positive news for him on the injury side. This week we've got some fun on the women's side. We've got Abu Dhabi, and we've also got Cluj in Romania. Return of Simona Halep. She's obviously come back after an injury, but has said that that injury is still giving her some concern on the knee. So just wish her well. She's had a really tough time in tennis recently. So hopefully she comes back well. On the men's side, there's 2 ATP 500 events going on. One in Dallas, one in Rotterdam. So some of the top players are playing those. So I think that's going to be fun. I think particularly the Rotterdam one, where you've got the likes of Alcaraz and Medvedev. You've got some of the top players competing in that event, so that's going to be exciting. So yeah, so that's all for me, just my weekly roundup. If you haven't already subscribed on my YouTube, Pavvy G, you got no excuse now. So give me a subscribe, like and share, and yeah, and I'm starting to write some tennis articles now. I've had a few media opportunities that have arose recently, so yeah, I'm gonna take those and try and push out some challenge some of those narratives that are out there. I'm still I've got launching a podcast that is ongoing at the moment. So we've got some of the people that I want to interview, some great people and great guests. So I'm going to get those interviews done, and then I'm going to be launching that later on this month. So that's something to look forward to as well. Okay, so wherever you are, peace out, take care, God bless, and I'll be back with another video soon. See you later.